Oh, it'll be that hard. Ding.
Jay, put that shit away. Hello and welcome to Biscuit, your weekly scary podcast for a month anyway. I am RJ Velosky. This is episode 28, I think. Yeah, 28 sounds about right.
It's episode 1 of Halloween!
And you know the players by now. This is Jacob Gamble, TJ Rathburn, and as you may have guessed, because you are a perceptive individual, a discriminating and discerning individual, because you watch Biscuit. We're doing some Halloween bullshit. This week
you only say that because you hate scary movies. You hate Halloween.
I don't. Hate
I don't
them.
know that you hate Halloween, but
I don't hate them. I could take or leave Halloween. It's I like the candy. But we are going to be talking about scary stuff, spooky stuff. This week's no particular order, if you already watched it, was top 5 most frightening moments in film. We're also going to be doing some other Halloween-themed lists, scary-themed lists, and we're going to talk about scary stuff on the Biscuit show, starting this week with a discussion on what scares us personally. And you already have a preview to that. If you watch no particular order, and that is TJ's intense fear of the Greys.
Yeah, it's a really long-standing thing, and it's not just fear. It is a weird and unhealthy fascination that is also fear. So, like, anytime I see something on television or whatever, I'm like, oh, it's about aliens. I have to stop and watch, despite the fact that I know I'm going to want to die by the time it's over. And it's been my entire life. I don't know why. I don't know what it is, but they just really captured me. There's something about that archetype that just really gets into the back of my head and makes me just straight terrified.
Well, I think...
Is it like a secret desire to be abducted, or?
Well, I mean, if I didn't, I don't want to be abducted. No, God, no. I have this weird.
Meanwhile, Jay's like, anal probes, yeah!
No!
Hey, that's one.
Yeah, that's one.
No, it's, like, I don't want to sound like a crackpot or whatever, but, like, I, at one point in my life, suspected, like, maybe there's something in this because I already had encountered something unexplainable at some point, but now as an adult, that's not something I want to delve into because I realize it makes me sound like a crazy person.
Fair enough.
Yes.
But you mentioned something there that I want to focus on, and it goes back to the well documented purported hatred of scary movies I have. It's not a hatred; it's just I avoid it. And you mentioned that for you with the Greys, it's a fascination that terrifies you. It's like picking at a scab. And for me, if something's scary to me, if something's unsettling, if something's unnerving on a deep level, I don't feel that weird attraction to it.
It's the only thing that really doesn't... Like, I like scary movies and stuff, although I've recently started to doubt that. Like, I'm not sure now whether I like horror or whether I like the trappings of horror, if that makes any sense. Like, I like supernatural stuff. I like things with a big sense of mythology, things that seem like there's more to a world. I really enjoy, like, monsters and creatures and stuff, like vampires and werewolves and all that sort of thing. I love that sort of stuff, but I don't necessarily enjoy horror films because I'm not in it to be necessarily scared. I'm in it to be enraptured by that sort of mythology.
Exactly. Yeah, and for my end, it's pretty much the exact same thing, because for all my purported hatred and disdain for horror, I absolutely love H.P. Lovecraft. I will read anything set in the Cthulhu mythos. I've watched pretty much everything that comes across that I've seen in TV shows or movies that reference the Cthulhu mythos. And I love it for exactly the reason you said, the sense of the enlarged world. And also, segue, maybe I'm making a liar out of myself here, but I do find something compelling and unsettling, I guess. Maybe not. I'm scared of it. Maybe it's not something like the reaction you have to the Greys, but you're still compelled. For me, though, there's something fascinating about the stark horror, not of the unknown, but of too much knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's really what the Cthulhu mythos is all about. It is learning. It's coming face to face with the vast, cold, and uncaring universe, and in this mythos, it's personified by these dark elder gods. But the theme, I think, is relevant in reality as opposed to necessarily any kind of mythos. It was also really well explored, I think, in the Hitchhikers series when Zaphod Beeblebrox confronts the scope of the universe, and the writing, I believe it says, "You are totally insignificant," and he shrugs it off.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that sense of like that's what's horrifying about H.P. Lovecraft stuff, is that sense of like these are not malevolent things. These are not things that hate us or want to kill us. They are things that are so far beyond us that we do not even register to them as something they should care about.
Yes.
Like, not even care about in the sense that we care about things like, you know, we care about people and like things we own and our pets and our families and stuff. No, just like not even of as much concern as our taking our next breath. Like, we are utterly beneath their notice.
Yeah,
that's scary.
Yeah, like you know, an anthill when you're outside and you kick over an anthill. Imagine our civilization is the anthill. You know, it's the more common, I think, trope that these things explore. You are ants. You are insects.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, do you even like when you're walking? I guarantee you, we've all trod upon a lot of bugs and never even noticed.
You know what is even probably a more apt analogy though would be the microscopic microbes that exist on your skin and that I just slaughtered an entire civilization of by wiping my nose.
Right, and you never even know. Doesn't even matter.
I don't know, Jay, what scares you besides every time you wake up in the morning and look in the mirror?
Ooh, yeah, that just makes me sad. It doesn't really scare me. Anyway, no, honestly, I love horror. I love the trappings of horror. I love pretty much anything short of the slasher flick kind of mentality, which I can't get behind, with the exception of some of them that are, you know, the Freddy Krueger, for example, the Dreams thing, or Jason with the zombie impossible to kill portion, the things like that add to it. But like Michael Myers never scared me. Nothing slasher oriented. But yeah, it's the sense that you guys touched on it. You guys touched on it pretty well when you were talking about the fact that it's realizing just how small you are and just how much you don't know, and what's possible. And I've always enjoyed the concept of what might be, you know, and you know, what might actually. Yeah, I mean, like, what was it? Was it Scanners, or was it Scanners that did the creatures that move just beyond the realm of what you can see? I think it was.
Sure.
I think it was. Yeah, we're just gonna go for the sake of argument. Sure.
Yeah.
But
I believe. Yeah. I haven't watched Scanners in a long time, but that does ring true. And I wanted to expand on what you're saying there, the sense of the unknown. TJ talked about a little bit in his list with you know, being trapped in a room with things that are too small to see, but you know, are deadly or dangerous in some regard. I think there's another element to this though, and that's a lot of these movies, a lot of pure horror movies, revolve around another concept that it's the individual being separated, being pulled from their associations with normal society, and they confront either an internal terror or some external terror that only makes itself known in a particular place where they are isolated in a small group or alone. And I think that ties into the sense of insignificance, because we as human beings draw our sense of significance, draw comfort we're evolutionarily designed to draw comfort from being a member of a group. And I think that's why
right, because just one of us we're not terribly scary creatures, but enough of us are really scary creatures.
Right. And for me, it's come down to one thing, like, when you're in the dark alone and you have those primordial fears, for me, the only thing it takes to absolutely abolish those fears and make them seem completely and totally irrational and I can put them away is just someone else right there with me. Growing up, my brothers and I shared a bedroom like a lot of people do. And like, if I was scared at night and I was alone because my brothers hadn't gone to bed yet or whatever, it was a lot worse than, like, my brother's right over there, I know this is ridiculous. And I think that gets back to this idea that it's far more frightening to be separated and isolated, and these terrors become much more pronounced. And that's why I think a lot of horror films utilize that.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there's something to that, simply based on the fact that I am one of the most introverted people that around, and part of the reason that I embrace horror movies and things like that is simply based on the fact that what you face by yourself is in and of itself terrifying. Facing you is scary in and of itself, and what's inside, so to speak.
Facing me? Facing yourself, you mean?
Facing yourself, yeah. I mean, you facing you, not
right.
You're very large and intimidating, sir, but
it's true.
You do not frighten me. I know you to be a giant teddy bear.
I am a big teddy bear.
But no, there's a lot to be said for what you were bringing up and how it actually affects us. And I wish that I could articulate it better, but I think you've got something there. And
okay.
Yeah.
I think we're tapping into some really like basic things, like my cat just bit me. That's what I'm afraid of.
Cats are terrible.
They are. They're just the worst. But the things that scare us are being alone, being overpowered, like the things that show us how weak we actually are. Which is why so many of the best monsters and stuff are reflections of the different weaknesses that we can have as people.
Sure.
They make us more aware of how like broken and awful we can be, because that like completely flips fear on its head. As much as it's terrifying to be alone and isolated and all of that, it's also terrifying to realize exactly how much danger you're in, even when you're with other people, because of how terrible we can be.
Sure.
That's part of how we talked about Seven and why Seven was such a great movie, and the the seven deadly sins and dying from those sins was one of those things that because all of us are guilty of gluttony and greed and things like that. Those are inner workings of ourselves, and part of what made that film great was
I think the concept of sin as it's evolved in human society and what we're afraid of are very closely related. Absolutely, and for good reason in a lot of cases. I mean, it's beneficial to be afraid of murderers. It's beneficial to be afraid of people who actively seek to do you ill emotionally or physically. But Well, I think, anything else you guys wanted to touch on here in terms of what scares you or what makes things scary or
Like the
anything?
specific things that scare me.
Well, no, we don't have to get into that so much,
Is
but
the aliens.
yeah, the
Yeah.
aliens. But
The theme song from Unsolved Mysteries.
yeah.
Because I am afraid of the theme song from Unsolved Mysteries for a very good reason, and it's because when I was young, my parents would watch it when I went to bed, and my bedroom was right by the living room, so I could hear whatever they were watching, and so I'd be laying there in bed, I'd be like, "Oh God, no," and I would come on and be like, "Whoa." Do. And I'm like, oh God, no. And then his voice would come out and it's dark in my room and be like, yes, this unsolved murder happened in Battle Creek, Michigan. It happened around this address. That's right, he's in your backyard, TJ. They never caught him and he's coming for you. You better hide, kid. And I'm like, oh no! And I would just be as stock still and make myself as small and straight as possible until commercials happen, and then I could relax. And then I'd be like, okay, I have to fall asleep before the commercials end. And if you try to fall asleep, that doesn't work. So I'm just forcing myself, come on, man, go to sleep. Whoa, no. So yeah.
So thanks for sharing.
Oh, yeah, that right there was that was sufficient in my opinion. I do want to talk about speaking of this, what we didn't get into what we've done this week or what things that
Halloween.
It's completely relevant in regards to, we got Walking Dead coming out at the end of the week. Sunday, Fear the Walking Dead ended. American Horror Story starts this week. It is.
We'll experience next week.
What's that?
So it's a bunch of stuff that we will have experienced by the
Yeah,
time.
but it by the time next week rolls around, but it's one of those things.
Well, a show that has premiered as of yesterday, Sunday, not yesterday when you're used to that by now. Anyway, that premiered on Sunday that isn't traditionally scary in terms of horror, but is psychologically bleak to the point of that sort of inner dread that we were talking about earlier with Insignificance, and that's The Departed. There is no show on television right now that I keep wanting to say bleak, but is more, I guess you could say, blatant in how it brings out a lot of the futility and transience of social connection. And since we were talking about social connection being a big part of resisting fear, having that undermined, I think, is really disturbing on some level. But I guess that's my kind of scary movie because I love that shit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Departed was a really good movie. No,
not. Did I say The Departed? I meant
You did.
Yeah.
Okay, I misspoke entirely. I meant The Leftovers.
I've heard good things. I haven't
Yes,
seen
The
this
Leftover. Yeah, Departed was a whole other thing as a movie. Good movie, but completely irrelevant to this. The Departed are part of the conceit of the show, which is, if you haven't watched it, in 2012, I think it was 2012. Anyway, about 3 or 4 years ago, millions of people across the earth just disappeared. No reason, no explanation. They were just gone. And the show is all about the social connection of the people that were left behind. You see a lot how family relationships play out when a husband and 2 children were departed, as it's referred to in the show, and why I made that mistake. But and it's just the single mother left behind, or the mother by herself left behind. And you see the way different people have reacted to this in terms of embracing a sort of religiosity to the phenomenon, and weird cults that spring up around it. And like I said, it's just this sort of exploration of the transience and futility or insignificance of social structures in a way that's profoundly disturbing if you think about it. So, good show.
Have to check this out, man.
Yeah, good show. All right. Well, I guess unless you have anything else, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. I don't think we had a whole lot in the way of comments, really. But if you have comments on this discussion, what scares you, or if you want to leave a comment on no particular order for your most frightening
we didn't have
comments, then go ahead and leave that, and we will talk about it next week. But we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So for Jacob Gamble, for TJ Rathburn, I am RJ Volosky, and we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.